Welcome back everyone. I hope you have been keeping up and successfully completed the character body model. Today we are diving into the fun part, creating 3D model of t-shirt, shorts and cap and hair for our character. Now jacket, shoes, glasses and more will be tackled in the next session. This is one of those lighter chapters in between the intense sessions where you can just use the modeling knowledge you picked up in the beginner's introduction series and have an easy time, and maybe even improvise a little. I'm Ram from Crossmind Studio and you're tuning into chapter number 5 of animated character creation series. I hope you are enjoying this series and can't wait to see your version of character. For this complete course including bonus chapters, project files and other useful things, check out the premium version. So details, hotkeys PDF and more are in the description. Let's dive right in. So let's start with the t-shirt. It's going to be pretty easy. First, I'm going to select the character body and go to edit mode and select all the faces somewhere in between till the upper arm, abdomen and till here, the neck part. Press Ctrl plus and expand your selection. And yeah, till about here. Now I don't want this much of neck. Yeah, till here I want. So once you have these faces selected, press Shift D to duplicate these selected faces, and within this edit mode I'm going to use a separate command. Alright, and I'm going to name this t-shirt. I'll select this, go to the edit mode, select all the faces and expand this a little. There's a tool, shrink and fatten. You can select this and drag it a little just so that there's a bit of offset between the body and this t-shirt, just a little bit. All right, now these edges that we had made to define a bit of abs, select these, press delete and dissolve these edges because we don't really need all that for the t-shirt. So any editing you want to do at this moment, just keep it on the left side so we can symmetrize it on the right side. And this shoulder, these faces, I can select these edges, press delete, dissolve these edges, select this middle edge and push it up a little. You can select everything, symmetrize from -x, which is -x here, to +x. So all that is copied to the right side as well. So this seems fine. Now what I want to do is extend this t-shirt all the way till here. Let me just select global mode, SZ0 to straighten this, SZ0. So this seems fine. Let me see without the smooth modifier what is happening here. So maybe a few more loops here and just want to make sure everything is equally distributed. This seems fine as well. I'm going to save the file. Just slide few of these edge loops to create an even distribution of the mesh. Now there's a difference when you're modeling for body and when you're making clothes. So this edge was helping define the area around the spine. So we don't really need all that here. So we can relax these a bit. So double tapping G is letting me slide these edges. Sliding edges maintains the shape and at the same time you can manipulate it a little. So whenever fixing the topology, slide will keep the volume maintained. I think one more loop here should do the trick. So right about here on the neck part, we can start arranging these in a slightly more circular formation for the neck. Just like this. Loops here look a bit stretched out, so I'm just going to add one loop here and slide this a little. Do the same at the back of the t-shirt. Control 1 for rear view. This is back view and just make a slight rounder formation. As you can see, I'm only working on the one side of the t-shirt. You can always delete half of the t-shirt and apply mirror modifier again. Might won't be necessary. We are just making a fewer changes here. The other reason is I'm going to do a bit of sculpting for the cloth filter. So in a moment, I will be needing the full t-shirt instead of just a half one with mirror modifier to run the simulation on it. All right, symmetrize, there you go. And then we can select this entire loop relax this a bit with this smooth tool. Let's extrude this and scale it down. Let's try to work on the neck formation, round collar. And here as well, I can use a bit of smooth, just trying to keep it round and clean. So it looks pretty good. Going to add one more loop here with Control R. And I think we are more or less done. But one thing is, at this moment, this t-shirt looks a bit stiff. So we can use few dynamic modeling tools to give it a bit of relaxation, like it's actually worn by a person. So there's a thing in Sculpt tool. If you go to the Sculpt tool here, let me apply this smooth subdivision surface thing so that we have a little more mesh to run the simulation of the cloth. Now in the sculpt mode, Control Tab Sculpt mode, if you scroll down all the way till here, there's a cloth filter tool. Just click on this. We are going to do a very minor adjustment with this. First, select the body and in the dynamic properties, click on collisions. So in this, I'm going to define the thickness of the cloth, 0.2. Select the t-shirt, Control Tab Sculpt mode, and let's go back to cloth filter. And here you have multiple options. So I just want this cloth filter to work with gravity to fall down a little. So increase the brush size and use collisions so that it uses this collision of the body. Now once I start dragging this, click and move it to the right, you'll see the cloth is falling down. Now you'll have to decide where to stop. Instead of dragging towards the right, waiting for this entire t-shirt to stretch and fall down, I'm going to shake it a little, like up and down, and just wiggle it a little. Just a little dab so that it just rests on the body, and that's all we need. So just give it a few attempts and it should work. So at this moment, it looks fine. I just don't want to overdo this. So all these edges here feels like it's resting on the arm. So this feels much better. So I'm going to go to the edit mode and fix any of the overlapping faces. Just use the proportional editing to remove any penetrations and avoid these overlapping areas. Symmetrize again. So I'm just checking what is happening here in the t-shirt. Yeah, because of symmetrize, I guess there is a bit of stupid thing happening. I can select these faces, Control plus, Control minus to expand it and reduce it, and then just get rid of these faces and grid fill this. This is fine. I can merge at center and get rid of this stupid vertex here. Dissolve vertices. Maybe I made some mistake while I was doing symmetrize. Control save, Control S, and let's see. Symmetrize. Yeah, this is fine. So t-shirt seems fine. Now right about here, let's see if I can use loop tool for circular formation. Circle. Disable flatten. Yeah, this looks much more circular. Much smoother than manually arranging these vertices. Loop tools are really handy. You just need to make sure when you use a circle from the loop tool to disable the flatten. Otherwise, it's going to flatten the entire circle. Let's try and do the same for this other edge loop where we are going to create round neck. Circle, circle from loop tools, and somewhere in between. I think this should work. Just about this much. So if you're not sure where to find the loop tool, it's in Edit Preferences, Add-ons, Loop tool. Just enable this, okay? You can find it on your special context menu, right click, or in the edit section. All right, Control R, add loop, Control B, add bevel, and Alt E, extrude along normals. This should create a separation for the seam. Now let's see if this is better than before. There's too much gap. I'm just going to slide the entire edge loop and try to reduce this a bit. Just trying to keep it subtle. Yeah, looks fine. And for the border, I'm going to select this, extrude it, scale it down, push it down a little, extrude it again, scale it down, push it down. A little bit of fabric thickness you can say here. So right here, these corners are sort of stretching collars. So I think maybe if I add one more loop here, it might help for this to relax. Basically, this will reduce the tension a little. That should be enough. Let's try and do the same for the sleeves of the arms. Just going to add one edge loop here. Select the border edge loop, extrude it, scale it down, and extrude again. I just want these to have bold, round borders. With the proportionate editing, scale this entire thing. Yeah, something like this. And then let's do the same thing here as well. Create one bevel and add two more segments in between. Extrude it inside to create a seam. Going to repeat the same process at the border of the t-shirt, right at the bottom. Let's see what do we have here. Maybe first I'll create a thicker fabric. Just add one loop here and scale it down. Let's disable the proportional editing and just like this, scale it down, extrude it up again, exactly what we did in the sleeves, and then add one more edge loop here, create a bevel. Just going to disable the subdivision surface for now. Just going to add one more loop here for seam, a bit of separation, and maybe extrude this in, or add another loop and manually move it inside. Just observe, if it's too harsh, then keep it one loop. The more edges you add, the stronger, the harsher it's going to get. I'm just going to select everything, symmetrize again. Alright, so t-shirt part is done. We're just temporarily going to add a simple material to see how this is looking in the render. It's alright. I think we can jump on to the next part. Let's put some pants on this. Shorts to be exact. The process is going to be similar to what we did in t-shirt. We are going to go to edit mode and see if we can extract something from within this. Let's select loop from the both side, Control plus, separate selection, select everything and expand this with the shrink and fatten. There you go. Let's get rid of half of this. And let's use the mirror modifier to save all that trouble. Get rid of collision from this that we applied for the t-shirt simulation, since we made a duplicate from the same body. Then I'm going to move this mirror modifier right above the subdivision surface. Now let's simplify this. So I'm going to get rid of these loops. Then select this entire loop, make an extrusion, E, and move it above. Then scale it down, SZ, to flatten this. Like I mentioned, topology of cloth should be much simpler than body, so we can simplify some of these edge loops. Let's see what all we can do. We should remove these unnecessary faces. Let's select the entire thing, Control plus, delete these faces, and then create a fresh one, extrude it, and move it in X direction. Let's enable the clipping. There you go. Let's see if we can get rid of these faces as well and do a grid fill. Grid fill often fills the area up with the simpler loops. And now let's push it out and smooth this out a little. Just make sure it doesn't penetrate with the body. And yeah, I think we will have to straighten these pants a little. So I'm going to select this last loop here and push it down till here. Control R to add few rings. Keep the distribution even. Use slide tool, double tap G. Then with the proportionate editing tool, I'm going to straighten this up. Basically, we don't want these pants to conform too much to the body. It should fall down straight. So hit O for proportionate editing. Then I'm going to just simplify a few of these loops, maybe add one here and get rid of this one which is unnecessary rerouting for pants. We don't need that. Let's smooth this out a little more. It looks a bit bulky at the back, so just going to straighten this. Something like this, and then let's add one belt loop here, and then slide to these below a little to make more room for it. Straighten this up, SZ, and then just trying to remove unnecessary tension between these loops and relax it as much as possible. Yeah, just keep using proportionate editing and work on the overall shape. I think the base mesh looks fine. We'll add a little more details at the borders. Let me just shorten these a little. About the knee length. So the base mesh is there for pants. I do see a few problems, especially right here. There's a triangle going on, which is creating this weird shape. I can surely fix this. Let me see if I can find a suitable loop for this. So maybe if I select this loop, then this goes right here. So instead, let's see how this is circling around. And I'm just trying to figure this out. Let me just get rid of this edge first so I can think straight. So let's see if I can loop this one first. So it's somehow is circling around. Yeah. So instead of this connecting here, it's going upwards. So that's a problem. So this we should disconnect here, dissolve edge. Now we need to just disconnect this one, connect with this. So something I should have paid attention to, but I can still fix it. And one loop is complete. Now I need to just take care of this half, add one loop here, Control R, and then connect this broken loop, the half one that we had left. So why I'm not skipping these parts is the main point of this exercise is modeling something organic, and all these are part of your daily routine when you're modeling something organic, so fixing loops and everything. So if I skip this part, that defeats the purpose of this entire tutorial. So fixing edge loops, manipulating vertices, fixing triangles, n-gons and all that, it's part of our job and daily routine. So making mistakes is something we can't really prevent. We can be careful, but if something goes wrong, we should know how to fix it. So almost done. I think that loop which was circling around, we have cleaned it up a little. So just going to slide few of these and even these out. So I'm going to select this entire thing and use the smooth option of it. So pretty much done with it. I'm just cross-checking everything, removing penetrations. Uh, yeah, I think we are done with this part. At any point, if you have an instinct that this should have been like this or this step should have been like this, you should try and do that. It's not that everything I'm doing here is a perfect process. So it's not a linear process, jumping back and forth a bit, jumping in between, trying to fix previous mistakes, making new things. That's how it's going to work. So for the base mesh, this looks fine. Now what I'm thinking here is to have a little bit of folds. So I'm just going to make a duplicate, hide this as a backup, then start preparing for these folds a little. What I'm thinking is just add a loop here. Usually borders of the shots are slightly broader. Select this border, extrude and scale it inside, and then extrude again and move it up to make this border. So a bit of seam I want to create here. Seems like one edge is not enough. We might have to do extrude along normals and create something more dense. Going to add one more edge loop here, similar to what you see around the stitches in bands. This is a bit much. So this was looking a bit harsh. So instead of extruding it, I'm going to make one loop and move it inside. Yeah, something like this. And then I can select this part, move it out, add one more loop here, add another one, and maybe one more, and then move it in and out. And I just want to create this little thick area which you see around the stitches. So this looks fine, and maybe one more edge here. And what I'm thinking is a bit of folded look. So for that, I can scale this down, move it down like this, and just maybe try to distort this a bit. It looks way too rigid, way too stiff. So this is a bit uneven from here. You can always use proportional editing to fix things up. So don't be too scared of leaving a few mistakes here and there. Everything can be fixed. If you like detailing a bit too much, what you can do is create a bit of offset between this and this seam, so it might look more natural. So I think at this point you might have understood this basic process, what we are doing, making simple extrusions, simple geometry, and manipulating it. So feel free to improvise a bit. There's need of seams from this side as well. So we can do the same thing here. Create a bevel, create few more edges in between. Control R, Control B, select this entire loop with Alt E, extrude along normal, move it inside, and there you go. I think I'm going to add a few more loops around it, and just trying to add that partition which you see around the stitches. Few more loops to reinforce this area, and let's see how it looks. All right, so more or less we are done. Don't forget to save your file. You can try and do the same thing here as well. Bit of variation. Just make sure while you're doing this, in case if you're using proportional editing, just select connected only. Otherwise, it's going to project the entire thing on edges around it. Now, here comes the bit of detailing part. Right here, I'm going to create a few more loops and move this out. It's like cloth is bulging out a little. So I'm going to move this up, try to create a bit of variation in surface. So don't be shy of adding few more loops, because if you want some details, you'll have to add more resolution. If there were finer details, I could have used normal maps. But in this case, these details are a bit chunky and not really finer details which you expect normal map for. That's the reason I'm thinking of not using sculpting and getting into the all those complexities at this moment. Also, at this stage, for a beginner level introduction video for character, I think that might be too much. We will talk about sculpted character once we make another series where we are working on detailed cinematic sort of a character. So there's a workflow for every different kind of character. So not necessarily always you have to use sculpting. For simple characters like this, or if you're doing illustrations, or maybe something for a simple ad, or maybe just a poster, or small animations, you can just go ahead with polymodeling. Here I'm thinking that everything I'm doing is reflecting on the both sides. So it's because of the mirror. So I'm going to apply this mirror modifier so that I can create some variation in both sides. It's usually advised that you keep the model symmetrical, and which I think that's how it should be. It ease out plenty of tasks like rigging, skin painting, and all that. So I'm risking it a bit at the cost of detailing, but feel free to keep it symmetrical and just stick with the symmetrical model with mirror modifier. All right, so shots are done, and one thing I completely forgot. I think a bit more detail is required here for the zipper line. So I'm just going to make a little more room here, slide few of these edges, and try to make a formation similar to zipper line. All right, so for the zip part, we can create one seam line first, and let's see how this works out. First thing I'm going to do is create the seam. Simply extrude that area out, and I can select this entire edge, rip this apart, press V to rip these edges. Now these are separate like this. Move it inside a little. Now let's see what more we need. I think I'm going to slide few of these loops, vertices around this way to create that flap on the zip line. I'm going to select these edges, this entire loop, and press Ctrl B, and this is going to create sort of a border, and then add one edge loop and push it inside to create that seam, a bit of separation. Can't see much with wire mesh, so I'm just going to disable wireframe and try again, maybe a bit more subtle this time. Still finding it a bit sharp, so I'm just going to undo and try again, create a wider bevel this time, and maybe not that harsh edge. Let's see. And right here I think there's a bit of gap I'm going to fix. Now if you want, you can also create the belt part, but we won't be seeing this underneath the t-shirt, so I don't really want to overdo this, but I'm pretty sure you can handle this. Just need to create a border, extrude along the normal, and do it twice to create a prominent edge. All right, so I think we are done with this as well, and we have t-shirt, we have pants, and this is starting to look a bit more complete. Now let's work on the cap part a bit, and then we can also add the hair strands. Cap is going to be quite simple actually. Just go to side view, mesh, UV sphere, get rid of half of these. Not exactly half, just one row less than half. Just want to make sure this is in the center. Shade smooth. Just going to select the centermost edge at the top. Slowly trying to shape this up. So there are going to be few hair strands right here. So just want to leave a very little gap so that there is no penetration between cap and hair strands. So just want to leave a little gap, and then take the proportionate editing brush and make a few adjustments to conform it to the shape of head. We can also get rid of half of these faces and use the mirror modifier for symmetry on the both sides so that we can work on just one side. Arrange these front vertices around the forehead in a little arc where we are going to create a hood of the cap. So just make a nice smooth arc here. Now right about here, I'm going to create a seam. So from about here, we can create a hood about this much. Just need to smooth it out a little. And this seam right here. First, I'm going to get rid of this top circle. else this area might get too congested once we create few bevels. Yeah, so this seam right here, we can bevel this with Control B, Alt E, extrude along normal, and this looks a bit too much. So instead of extruding this whole thing inside, I'm manually going to create one edge loop here and move it inside a little. So I don't think we need two loops here. Yeah, so manually created a few faces here instead of extrude command. This feels fine. Now the problem with extrude is you can't really solidify it at this moment. So if I make one extrude here, it's creating a hollow surface. Extrude along normals. So I realized it a bit late. So that's a problem. Because of this, what I'm thinking is instead delete all of these faces and instead extrude this right here, this entire loop. Just make one extra edge loop to create this section from where we are going to extrude the hood of the gap. And this way it's going to be solid and we can see the faces from the both sides. So it looks all right now. Let's create a few loops and you can add a loop here as well to thicken this wall. And yeah, I think this might have solved it. So that saved us. And right here, this entire loop, I'm simply going to extrude this and scale it down like this and extrude it again and push this up to sort of create one thick wall. So I want this entire model to look soft and have no sharp edges. At the top, I can select this. So grid fill is not working because it's half of the model and not complete loop. So I can apply this mirror modifier, and then if I try to grid fill this should work. Simple blending. Now here I'm going to create one simple cube, and this is where we are going to align the button of the cap. Let's just bring a simple clean geometry and we are going to place it right here. Enter the edit mode. Let's get rid of half of this cube and align it here. Just scale these loops in and out to make the shape of the button. If I insert these, I may be able to create a rounder formation. You can also try and get rid of these middle two edges. That would work as well. So just working based on observation. Just keep it round and soft, and maybe we can add one seam right in the middle. I think this should be enough. This is done. The last thing I'm thinking of doing here is select these 4 loops, select this area, and move it down a bit. Just want to thicken this wall a little, the hood part basically, and maybe add another edge loop to make a hard formation. I think this should work, but right now it looks a bit strange because we don't have hair for the character. So let's work on the hair part a little bit. So I'm going to add few hair for this character, and that's going to be pretty simple. You have done so much here if you're following along. Let me give you something much easier to model this time so you can relax a bit. Yeah, so here we are going to add some NURBS curve. So this is NURBS curve. All right, so if you extrude it, so from the median point, this is going to create a curve. All right, so I'm going to delete all of these vertices in the edit mode. Control click here, control click here. So we have a new curve. If you press V, you can free these handles, manipulate these curves. If these are set to vector, everything is going to appear straight. Now we have this curve. Now all we need to do is create a profile curve. So let's say if this was a hair strand, we need a profile curve to make it a solid curve. Let's add one additional Bezier curve for that, in which we are going to create a profile of this hair strand. Going to delete this smooth curve and create a fresh vertices here with control click. Disable proportionate editing. Now just control click a few times and create some shape, something like this. Something noisy and organic. And now select everything, free, going to create a few sharp edges. So just manipulate these handles and create few sharp corners in between. So what I'm doing here is creating a profile for a hair, sort of a clump. So it's not one hair, it's a bunch of hair. And like what you see in anime. Later on, we are going to work with the shader to create some nice separation and find the strands. Now, if you select this hair strand and go to the curve property, here you have geometry section. In geometry, you have three options. Create a simple round geometry, interesting profile for the sides, or you can add a different object which should be a curve object to create a profile for this. So now we have a profile curve, and in the edit mode here, oops, I see a bit of offset. I think that's to do with the origin. So I think first I need to set the origin to center of this object, origin to geometry. Yeah, now the profile will appear where the curve is exactly. So if you press Alt S, you can define the radius of the curve. Alternatively, you can see here in the N properties panel, you will see tilt of the curve, weight of the curve, and radius of the curve. Here, I'm going to leave the radius to 1. Right here, I see some sharp edges. So what you can do is select everything, and in the interpolation, you can use B-spline. This gives much smoother results. You can also use cardinal, that works as well. So now we have hair strand. You can isolate these and just see if you want to fix this. So at this moment, it appears way too thicker. I'm going to reduce the thickness. Instead of shrinking everything down, I'm going to move few of these manually. So right here, it looks a bit flat. So I think it's this part. I can subdivide this to add one more point and select these, subdivide this, add one more point. So like this, you have multiple hairs. So I want to keep it bulky, softer. This side appears a bit too flat. This can be like this. Now exit the edit mode, isolation mode. This right here, I'm going to copy here, object, set origin to geometry. Now I'm going to start placing these strands here for the character. Go to the edit mode and start fixing this around the character's head. So I don't plan to create the entire hairline since we have a cap for character. And here you can use the tilt option to align, press Ctrl T for that. Create a duplicate. If you select all of these vertices and reduce the radius, press Alt S and scale this down, you can create a thinner strand. So take your time, explore a good hairstyle for your character, and maybe sketch it out and then work on placements if you find exploring in 3D time consuming. So just carefully placing few strands. We have to make very few hair because the shape is pretty big, and we don't really need to have too much density around these areas. And we can control a lot in shading part, where we are going to create nice finer hair from these strands. So yeah, just don't try to overpopulate this. Just making sure there is a sort of roundness in the hair strand and things are not flat so that it catches more light. Shift D, scale this down and create one more strand. Just keep switching views so that the hair folds in different directions and it's not really flat. Smoother and rounder the curves are, the more lights and specular it's going to catch. So as soon as we put some hair for this character, you'll see it's starting to look much more complete. So with everything, we are getting closer to finishing our character. I'm just excited to see how this is going to look with the colors. So there are many methods to create hair and hair strands, some with particles, some with curves, and even geometry nodes can create hair strands. So depending on kind of animation you're dealing with, if you're going for something realistic, then obviously you'll have to go with the particle hair. If you're going for something as stylized as this, like the softer character with bold details, then bulky hair strands will look good, I guess. And like I said, there's much to be done in shading part, so don't judge it as of now. Yeah, so just keep making duplicates with Shift D of these hair strands, twist it with the Control T, and do a simple transformation. Just populate the rest of the area. We are pretty much done, and then you can select multiple of these in edit mode and tweak these together. Alright, so for now I'm going to leave the hair as it is, and we'll see after we apply the materials and everything how this turns out. If needed, we can always adjust things later. Since there is no color information at this moment, so I don't want to make any unnecessary decisions which I can't even judge without the colors. So now the only things which are left is the shoes and the jacket. Alright, so let's do that. Just in case if you want to make your previews a bit more exciting, what you can do is since we haven't worked on materials or anything, so every time you make a new object, you have to assign a new material or the same material. So instead of that, just make an object, just making a cube, and here I'm going to name this a preview material. So this preview material I can load in the passes view layer properties. So right here you'll see override. So what will happen is if I enable the render preview, right now it's going to show material which are assigned to model, but if you go to override and select your preview material or any material, so everything will be shaded in the same material. So this is going to override whatever material information is there on the model. So this is a quick and easy way of sort of creating a clay render or something. All the surfaces have the same color, same shading. So this is a quick and easy way. And here I'm going to add a bit of subsurface scattering. If you are using Blender version 4.0, then instead of subsurface, you'll have to tweak scale of subsurface. So just keep that in mind. A bit of a change in the principal BSDF node. So this video was recorded in during the alpha stage of Blender 4.0, but a bit of update shouldn't be too difficult. So there you go. You have a solid preview which looks much better than having gray materials. So this shows contours a bit better. So this is just a personal preference. So that wraps up this session. I'm trying to keep the chapters short and we'll continue to build on this in the next one. So let's jump to the next video and craft a nice jacket and shoe model. The character model will start to look complete by the end of the next video, but it's up to us how far we want to take it. I can't wait to see what you guys are creating. So do share your version of this model with me on social media or on the Discord. Links are in the description. Happy modeling. Jump to Discord server if you'd like to discuss anything related to this on channel dedicated to this series. Check pinned comment for frequently asked questions and problems. Check description for PDF of keyboard shortcuts, discount coupons and other mentioned resources for this tutorial. If you enjoyed this chapter, do check out the full playlist and hope you continue all the way till the end. Also consider buying the premium version and unlock the additional chapters and project files and bonus content, which will take you through the process of rigging with Rigify, creating a nice walk cycle animation, creating secondary animations using plot physics and bone constraints, and rendering your entire project using Cycles Render Engine. Share your work with me on Instagram, tag me with Crossmind, and participate in discussion on Discord channel for this course. Links are in the description. Please give it a like and subscribe and stay tuned for more. Share your thoughts in the comment section and don't forget to share it with your colleagues and on social media to help us reach the wider audience. Thank you for all your support and love. Let's jump to the next video.